Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Press Club. My name is Richard Ryan, and I am Senior Washington Correspondent for the Detroit News and President of the National Press Club. And I'd like to welcome club members and their guests in the audience today, as well as those people who are watching on C-SPAN or listening to this program on National Public Radio. The video archive of today's luncheon is provided by Connect Live and is available through the National Press Club website at press.org. National Press Club luncheons are also carried live by many sites on the World Wide Web. Press Club members may also access transcripts of our luncheons at our website. Non-members may purchase transcripts, audio and videotapes by calling 1-888-343-1940. Before introducing our head table, I would like to remind our members of future speakers. On Tuesday, April 17th, Secretary Tommy Thompson of the Department of Health and Human Services will be here to talk about his new initiative for organ donations. On Monday, April the 23rd, David M. Walker, Comptroller General of the United States, will be our guest. And on Wednesday, April 25, Dale Petrosky, who is President of the Baseball Hall of Fame, will be at the Press Club. I'd now like to introduce our head table guests and ask them to stand briefly when their names are called. And please hold your applause until all head table guests are introduced. From your right and my left, we have Michael Marlowe, producer of the White House Chronicle. Tony DiCicco, Chief Operating Officer of the Women's United Soccer Association and coach of the World Cup Championship team. Bobby Goldwater, President and Executive Director of DC Sports and Entertainment Commission. Lee Burke, Chief of Marketing and Television, Women's United Soccer Association. April Taylor, reporter with the Detroit News. Julie Foudy, player with the San Diego Spirit and president of the Women's Sports Foundation. Frank Ockerfer, co-chairman of the Speakers Committee, a former National Press Club president. And skipping over our speaker for a moment, Arthur Bernstein, vice president of the United Sports Fans of America and the Speakers Committee member who arranged today's luncheon. Thank you, Arthur. Christine Lilly, a player for the Boston Breakers. Barbara Allen, Chief Executive Officer of the Women's United Soccer Association. Jennifer Sargent, Scripps Howard News Service. Sheila Tate, principal with the Powell Tate Public Relations Firm. Now, Now, if you have questions, and I trust you will, please write them on the cards that are in front of you and address them not only to our speaker, but also to Julie and Christine, who will be here to answer questions as well. Today, instead of the single newsmaker we normally have at our National Press Club, we have three. You just met two of them, Julie Foudy and Christine Lilly. The third, John Hendricks, founder, chairman, and CEO of Discovery Communications Incorporated. Little. That's true. Not bad. is the principal organizer of the new Women's Professional Soccer League, which debuts tomorrow with a game here in Washington. Who can forget that day in the Rose Bowl in 1999 when the U.S. women's soccer team defeated China for the World Cup? Julie and Christine were both members of that team. And Christine made the defensive play of the game when she blocked with her head at the goal line what appeared for a moment would be the winning goal for the Chinese team in sudden death. Even those who were non-soccer fans at the time, including myself, could not help but be captivated by the thrill of the moment and the intensity of the game. The women on both teams played to near exhaustion. When the U.S. finally won the penalty kick in the game, the thousands in the stadium and the millions watching on television cheered the American team, although perhaps not as exuberantly or as demonstratively as Brandi Chastain. Now the members of that winning team truly have a league of their own. All 20 players will be part of the Women's United Soccer Association, the new professional women's soccer league. The World Cup players have been split among the 8 teams that begin the season tomorrow. The first game at the newly refurbished RFK Stadium in Washington will feature the Washington Freedom and the Bay Area Cyber Rays, and will pit 2 former teammates against one another. Mia Hamm will lead the Washington team, while the Cyber Rays feature Miss Chastain. It's our intent to have the best product on the first day, and that everybody walks away and goes, "God, that was incredible," Brandy Chastain has said. Ms. Foudy, the captain of the U.S. women's national team and president of the Women's Sports Foundation, is a midfielder for the San Diego Spirit. Ms. Lilly is a forward midfielder with the Boston Breakers. The other four teams are the Atlanta Beat, Philadelphia Charge, Carolina Courage, and New York Power. When the women players decided they really wanted their own league and not become an adjunct to the men's professional soccer league, they called on John Hendricks to help them put it together. Mr. Hendricks, who turned his 1982 founding of the Discovery Channel on borrowed money into a billion-dollar empire, has already proven to be a true visionary. In about 3 weeks, Mr. Hendricks lined up some $40 million in backing from his cable buddies, and the dream of a women's soccer league became a reality. He is chairman of the board of the Women's United Soccer Association, but the players refer to him as St. John. Born in West Virginia, Mr. Hendricks grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. He graduated with a degree in history in 1973 from the University of Alabama. He and his wife, Maureen, have 2 children. He founded the Discovery Channel because he felt there ought to be a place on television for showing documentaries. Discovery went on the air in 1985 with 156,000 subscribers. Today, Discovery Communications operates in 150 countries with 180 million total households with 500 million viewers. Mr. Hendricks' communications holdings now include the Learning Channel, Animal Planet, Travel Channel, Discovery Health Channel, Discovery Kids, several digital channels, Discovery.com, and 165 Discovery retail stores. So now he and the women's soccer players are counting on his Midas touch to extend to the new soccer league. As Ms. Foudy has said, quote, "You only get to launch a league but once. We want to do it right." So please join me in welcoming John Hendricks, Julie Foudy, and Christine Lilly to the National Press Club. Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Dick. Well, it's a pleasure to join you here today. With that introduction, I guess you'll see I might be wearing a number of hats. I'm a soccer dad. I represent the cable industry. I represent the investors who believe in the founding players who have made this league happen. But if Michael Eisner is channel surfing, I just want to assure him that I'm not representing Disney today. You know, that's a future acquisition. It's a great thrill to be here. And what I thought I would do is tell a little bit about the history of how the cable industry got involved with these remarkable players. I think the real stories of how this league came about will be told through your questions, though, of Julie Foudy and Christine Lilly. One word comes to mind to me today, and that's the importance of team and teamwork. I think that's at the heart of what this league is all about. I think almost all of us who are involved in professions, whether it's business, government, politics, journalism, at certain times we're called upon to be a team player. And we all know that in difficult times, and I know there are certain companies out there who are worried about their quarterly earnings, they're learning the value of teamwork at this critical moment. Teamwork is learned early on. Most of us guys played team sports when we were children. I remember in that period that Dick alluded to, from 1982 to 1985, I started Discovery in '82. Had 3 torturous years in trying to find the backers, the believers who would invest that initial $25 million to get us on satellite. Someone once counted there was over 200 presentations I made, and 197 were no. And I recall keep hearing a voice at the end of some of those meetings when people said, "Nice idea, but we just don't think people will watch. They'll be interested in what you're calling the Discovery Channel." And I kept recalling football coaches who said it's not over until the final whistle blows. Never, ever give up. And so a lot of us dads have had the great fortune of playing team sports, having great mentors and coaches, and we know the value of that. And I think that's what's so remarkable about this undertaking that kicks off tomorrow, is that this league was made possible by the dreams of the players in this room. I was going to say these dreams started 2 decades ago, but I'm reminded that Christine and Julie are a little older than that, and so if they started playing when most players started at 5 and 6 years old, it's kind of a 2.5-decade-year-old dream for the veterans in the room. But we have to have dreams in order to have a dream come true, and that's what tomorrow's opening of the WSA is all about. It's the value of the team. We all witnessed it this week in the news as the young lieutenant and the crew of our Navy plane came home. And we learned a little bit about this remarkable pilot. I happen to be a pilot and know a little bit about aerodynamics, and all across the country, pilots are confused on how he managed to land that plane after falling 8,000 feet, recovering and having control. We've learned that he was a football player, and he carried teamwork to the end and to the extreme. He was not about to let his team down, and he spent every amount of energy until he put it down in China and really saved that crew. It's a remarkable story. And again, teamwork and the value of a team, not letting your team players, your teammates down. The story of the WSA starts with the founding players. It starts, I think, in many ways with their childhood dreams. Many of them, their sports heroes were the male sports stars. They've now become the sports heroes for young girls and boys around the country. But in 1991, the women's U.S. national team landed back in the United States, having come back from a successful World Cup outing in China and won the World Cup for the first time. And that really, I guess, is probably a keystone moment in the history of the sport. Young players were on that team, Christine Lilly at the time, and Julie Foudy, Mia Hamm, others that are in the room today. And they set upon a 10-year quest to really demonstrate excellence, demonstrate teamwork, and demonstrate that it really could be done, that it could be developed in this country, a phenomenal following for women's team sports, and introducing all over the world the excellence in soccer that they have demonstrated. There was a character-building experience in 1995 as they lost to Norway at the World Cup, but they came back strong in 1996. A number of us were in the stands in the Olympics in 1996 in Athens, Georgia, where we witnessed over 75,000 people, this incredible sporting event. I was in the stands with my wife, Maureen, my children, Andrew and Elizabeth, and I was struck by how the fans were connecting, not with the stars that we had read about in the press, but with almost all of the players. I sat there, but I knew that there was one missing ingredient, and that was television. As you might recall, NBC failed to telecast that phenomenal sports event. And I felt, just as someone in the television industry, that with the addition of television exposure, this would be something to behold on the American sports scene. Several years later, I was introduced to the players. They were in the process of starting a league. It was close to the time of the 1999 World Cup. I recall several of the people who are in this room, like Tony DeChico and Julian Foudy and I, were in a meeting with U.S. Soccer. And some of the advisors to the soccer powers were kind of looking at the glass half empty. But Julie Foudy, the players, Tony DeChico, Lauren Gregg, and others believed that something magic could happen with the addition of television and with the play that America was going to witness in the summer of 1999. A lot of people kind of laughed at the prospect of playing in large stadiums, but the players believed in themselves. They insisted that they would probably need Giant Stadium. They would need Jack Kent Cooke Stadium here in Washington, D.C., and look at the phenomenal showing that happened in that year. There are a lot of people now who doubt the success, the potential success of a women's soccer league. And again, we kind of welcome those people who look at the world with a half, seeing the glass half empty. I think what you'll see today and certainly tomorrow on the field is those people who dream and see the glass half full. The league came about after the winning of the World Cup that established in the American mind these great female sports heroes. They graced the cover of all the news weeklies, People magazine. And this, I think, then was another pivotal moment in the development of the league, which kicks off tomorrow. The players, we needed money. The players, I think, to their good judgment, always felt that the league should be independent, not affiliated with another sports league where the potential for a conflict could arise with the expenditure of that next hard-earned $1 million. They felt that the league should be entirely focused on the success of the women's game in soccer. And I think that was a terrific decision that they made. Enter then in the December of 1999, the investors who came together to really back these women and invest in their dreams. And those companies that have joined the founding of WSA are Cox Enterprises and Cox Cable. They're represented on our Board of Governors by Jim Kennedy and Jim Robbins. Other publishing families are involved. For instance, one of the teams is owned by Time Warner, the Carolina team, Time Warner Entertainment, Advance Newhouse. And of course, the Newhouse family has a great tradition, not only in publishing and cable television, and they're firm backers of this product. Time Warner Cable, operators of the New York team, they will be instrumental to the success of this league. They're represented on our board by Fred Dressler, and with the merger with AOL, just think of the resources of now AOL, Time Warner, bringing to bear on the success of this league. Assets ranging from Sports Illustrated, TNT, who will broadcast the game tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, as well as cable exposure across the country. Also Comcast Corporation. Comcast will be the team operator in Philadelphia, and they're represented on the board by Amy Bance, and their chairman and CEO have extremely supportive of this effort, the Roberts family, and they will be the exclusive media partner for the Washington team. And then in Boston, Amos Hofstetter, many of you know Amos, who was the founder of Continental Cablevision. Continental merged into AT&T, and Amos is very supportive of the league, is operating the team in Boston, and is a partner of mine in operating the Bay Area team, operating out of San Jose. That was a crucial event in the development of the league, the coming together of backers who are willing to stay with this, whatever it takes to get this league to break even. Those of us in business typically prepare business plans with an objective of getting to break even in 36 months to 48 months. I know some of my executives from Discovery are here and they've heard this speech before. And so many times our goals are 36 months to get to break even. But for some of our businesses where we know it's a tougher business climate, a little more challenges, you have a long-term patience. For instance, Discovery India is a challenge for us, and we hope to break even in about 6 to 7 years with that service, whereas a travel channel or a learning channel were able to get there. Clark Bunting's here representing Animal Planet. He was able to get there certainly within 48 months with his business plan. And so with our league, we hope to break even somewhere between 4 years and 6 years from launch. We may be pleasantly surprised and get there earlier. There's a number of targets that we're hoping to reach, most of which depend upon the support of the fans. And here again, we're optimistic. We're optimistic that at a minimum, 7,000 to 8,000 people will turn up to each event of the WUSA. So we're greatly heartened that as of a few moments ago, we're up to around 25,000 seats sold at RFK Stadium. And if history is any guide, we expect perhaps maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people will show up at the stadium tomorrow for general admission tickets. So I think we have a great send-off for the league. The games, television again is this important element. The games will be nationally televised on TNT and CNNSI. Great regional coverage for the league will be provided by our investor partners plus other media partners, from Comcast Sportsnet to Fox Sports, AT&T in Boston, and others around the country. So tomorrow is all about dreams coming true. We hope that all of you will watch. We encourage all of your suggestions. I heard Mia Hamm last night tell Brian Williams on MSNBC that this is a year of learning, because we have the attitude that we don't have all the answers. And we look forward to the fans participating in the development of this league. We look forward to sponsors. We look forward to all the journalists recognizing the importance of this undertaking. Many of us open the sports page every day dominated by the team sports coverage for the male sports. I think this will be an important test for American journalism. Will they cover this league with the amount of print coverage that it deserves, and that the public will demand, I think, over time. And so with that, I'd like to ask for questions, turn it back over to you, and we have three of us here poised to take your questions: myself, Julie Foudy, and also Christine Lilly. And back over to you, Dick. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and you have to promise me that you will tell me first when you acquire the Disney Channel. Okay. We have a number of questions. This one would like to know, who are the investors and sponsors behind the new league?
I think I covered the investors. I'll run through them again. Myself, Amos Hofstetter as individuals, and then the corporate investors are AOL Time Warner, and then AOL Time Warner has two divisions that are actually the team operators, and that's Time Warner Cable and Time Warner Entertainment Advanced Newhouse Partnership, which will operate and made the investment for the Carolina team. Cox Enterprises, Atlanta, Cox Communications, San Diego, and Comcast Corporation for Philadelphia. The lead sponsors are Hyundai and Johnson & Johnson, through a number of brands at Johnson & Johnson. And those are the lead brands that are now affiliated with the league's launch.
A couple of questions that deal with success. One is, what will be your definition of success? And secondly, what do you consider to be the 2, 3, or 4 critical factors for the new soccer league to become a success?
I think to be successful in terms of sponsorships, we, over time, over the next 3 years, need to attract to the support of the league perhaps 6 to 8 additional sponsors at the level that Johnson & Johnson and Hyundai have stepped up to the plate and provided during this inaugural year. I mentioned one of the key statistics will be a fan turnout, and then we have what we think is a conservative projection, but I think all business plans should be conservative, and that's around 7,000 to 8,000 attendees per game event. And again, that is a number. We have startup capital that we can operate on until the league builds up to that. So again, that could be an average number for this year. It could be an average number that we build to in the second or the third year. So that's a key milestone. A number of the success factors I think are already in place. I think what the fans will witness is competition at the very top form. These are world-class athletes. There's not many sports leagues that can start off with the 2 great assets that we have. We know we have the best league in the world. How many sports leagues, especially startup leagues, can say they are the very best sports league in the world for their particular sports? We also have the advantage in household names, people that the fans already know and love and will turn out to see, like Mia Hamm, like Brandi Chastain, Christine Lilly, Carla Overbeck, and others. And so we have that advantage. And so I think those are 2 ingredients layered on top of these other success factors in terms of sponsorship and attendance.
Let's get Julie and Christine involved here. There's a couple of questions that deal with your duties or your feelings or your responsibilities as role models for the country. This one says, how do the women on the team feel about the responsibility as role models? And this one asks both of you, do you feel that sports figures have a responsibility to be role models as well?
Hello. Well, I think, first off, what I've learned with playing throughout the national team is basically our team naturally live our lives. We don't do anything special. We just are ourselves. And I think when young kids come up to us and basically ask us for an autograph, it's the greatest feeling in the world. And I think besides playing soccer, I think my greatest thing about what has happened is being a role model. And I think it is a responsibility. I think it comes with what you do. And I think what has been so successful for our national team and what's going to be successful for this league is that we do take the responsibility of being role models and to communicate to our fans and to talk to the young girls. The greatest thing is when a young kid comes up to you and says, you know, I wear number 13. You're like, all right, that's cool. You know, it's not anything special. We're not doing anything different than these young kids, and I think that's what's been so great.
That's for both of you. Just talk about your feeling as a role model.
Okay. I also think one of the other things on top of what Christine said was, you know, a lot of us growing up on the national team didn't have female role models. You know, I grew up watching the Lakers and the Dodgers and the Rams, all local men's professional teams, and never really had any women that I grew up watching. And I think that is such a refreshing experience for us as players now, having grown up watching men, when we see these little kids come up to us. And I mean, the look in their eyes is so affirming of what we're doing is right. And I think when you see the reaction, it's like, this is what it's about for these young kids, because all of a sudden they're watching women doing great feats on the field in front of great crowds, and all of a sudden that dream becomes something very realistic. And I mean, I couldn't even imagine, we were talking amongst ourselves after the World Cup of how wonderful that would have been to sat in the stands with 100,000 other people at the Rose Bowl watching a World Cup and watching women play a World Cup. You know, we grew up watching men do that. So I think with this league, that's really our goal and our vision as players was we said we want the kids to feel connected. We want them to meet the players. We want to be accessible. We want to sign autographs. We've been very successful on the national level doing that and tying in with these kids and forging a great relationship with them. And so in each of the 8 cities, all the national team players have said, from, you know, the founding player down to the 20th player, make yourself available, because I think in professional sports today that's sometimes lost. And I think, you know, that's where we find ourselves different, is we're going to connect with that fan, and we're going to connect with that young kid like we've done with the national team, and feel that it is our responsibility because we do make a difference.
Here's a question that asks, why should young girls attend the women's games, and how can they convince their parents to take them? I'd like to have Christine and perhaps Julie play the role of the young girl talking to their parents and asking, Mom, Dad, I want to go to this game. Why? Here's why you should take me. Tell the parents.
I have a good one first. I don't know if this was a planned question by Kelsey, right? Kelsey just came up to me to take a picture before we started, and I said, Kelsey, are you going to the game tomorrow? She said, no. I said, why not? My parents don't want to go. Right? Well, I said, really? Are your parents here? Yeah, Dad. Raise your hand, Dad. So I brought Dad over. Kelsey's now going to the game tomorrow. But I think one of the things that's going to drive this league is exactly that. I mean, kids love this team, young kids. They want to go out. And what we found is we want to make it a goal to make ticket prices affordable so the whole family can come. And so Kelsey can say to Dad, Dad, get me a ticket, you know, and not just don't bring me, let's bring the whole family. And we found that that's our target audience, the young families, the young kids, and with the ticket package we have, I think average ticket costs are $11. It will be affordable. They can bring the whole family. So Kelsey is now going to the game tomorrow. No pressure.
I think also as young kids, dads always take their boys to games, and I think this is a great opportunity for dads to take their girls to sporting events. And basically, the young girls want to go, and now it's to show Dad, hey, you know what, girls can play too. And I think that's going to be another aspect that's going to bring the parents and kids to the game as well.
Mr. Hendricks, we have some questions here that just want some basic information about the new league. How long is the season? What's the structure of the games? What's the number of games? How many games will be on television? And this one, what's the league website? I'll leave those there for you to look at.
WSA.com. Yeah, the league site is easy. It's www.wsa.com. So WSA.com will get you. Huh? Yeah. Yes, that's right. And so that's the basic on the website, and I think you'll find a great site there. It was relaunched about a week ago. It was terrific before, but I think the people who revisit will discover a whole new entertainment experience online at WSA.com. The basics of the league, it'll be around 5 months seasons, kicking off tomorrow. It will culminate in the later weeks of August as we work toward a championship game. So it's long. It's 8 teams, 5 months long as a season. There are 8 teams. Each team will play approximately 20 games each. And since there's 2 teams on at each game event, it translates into 80 games. Of that, we have a phenomenal number of games that will be on television. Around 20 to 25 games will be nationally televised. Another 40 games will be televised regionally. And so in each market that has a team, you'll have a terrific amount of coverage, perhaps 3 or 4 games on national television, with about 7, 8, or 9 in some markets on regional television. Here in the Washington area, for instance, Comcast Sportsnet will be the exclusive regional provider of games. So we feel extremely confident with the television exposure that we'll have for this league. And so those are the basics of the league. And again, it's going to be tremendous to watch the progress through the year and see who emerges on top with that championship trophy at the end of August. I would also like to say another ingredient of coming to the events. I think you'll find that what this league has engendered is a lot of excitement on the local level, and we've been tremendously pleased with the response by the venues who are all excited about the debut of this sports league. I think the fans who attend tomorrow's game at RFK will see just wonderful work by the D.C. Sports Commission to really making that stadium come to life. And I want to say a special thanks to Bobby Goldwater, who's new on the job at RFK, for just producing a great venue for tomorrow's historic inaugural game.
Don't sit down yet. No. This question, I would like to know that what does the women's soccer mean to you as a parent? As I understand, you have two children. Both are soccer players. Is that correct? And what does that mean to you as a parent?
I mean, this is tremendously exciting, as I think any parent would testify to who's involved in youth sports at really any level. Again, I go back to what I was talking about at the beginning, the importance of teamwork to youth development and the importance of role models. And my daughter Elizabeth started playing when she was 6 years old. I remember her coming home from school and saying, "Daddy, you know, when they pick sides at recess, when the boys start picking sides, they always pick me first." And she got involved in soccer at that early level, and next year we're seeing her, because of her involvement in soccer, she had an advantage in the college application process by being a recruited athlete, and she'll be playing for Princeton University next year. So in terms of our family, soccer has meant a great deal in the development of our kids. Our son plays competitively for his high school. And so again, most of us guys know the value of early team sports development. This league will give those opportunities and aspirations to girls as well. So as a parent, we think this is a tremendously important undertaking.
There are some sports that are, the public seems to just naturally embrace, and others that don't quite achieve a world stage. And so why do you feel that this comes about? And what are the main reasons for this? And just sort of the same idea is that why is soccer growing so much in importance? I remember when I was a kid, which was a couple years ago, but we played baseball and football, and no one really ever heard much about soccer. What's been the turnover? What's been the change?
I think there's several factors. I grew up and I played football and baseball. Those were my two team sports, and no one played soccer where I grew up in Alabama at the time. And what we've witnessed, though, is that soccer, in a way, is a very physically democratic sport. You don't have to be 7 feet tall to play it. It's very size irrelevant. I love it when I love watching 11 and 12-year-old girls or boys meet some of the national team players. A lot of times they're bigger than some of the national team players. And it's an immediate association that they perhaps could play this sport regardless of their physical size. It's a sport that's not that expensive to play in terms of the equipment requirements. And so I think it's those factors that has led to its explosion at the youth level. Then from the fans' perspective, it's the nonstop action that we've all witnessed. You know, for 45 minutes in each half, you know, there are no breaks, there are no huddles, there's some injury downtime, but other than that, it's a fast-paced, wonderful game, which the world caught on to, of course, decades ago, as it's the world's favorite sport. So I think we're learning a lot in America about the value of soccer, its appeal to at the youth level, at the fan level, and in a lot of ways we're just catching up to what the world has already been on to since the early 1900s.
And this is a two-part question. One I suspect you can answer, one you may not, but I think our two other guests may. First part of the question, how was it decided which founding team members would be on each of the teams? The second question is, do you have any predictions who might win the season?
I'll let the players answer the second. I have not a clue how Mia Hamm ended up on the Washington Freedom. I don't have a clue how that took place. But we've all felt it was important. The founding players, who really are the basis of this league and why it exists, you know, they knew the value of splitting up, and so that the marquee talent, each market would have their star players. And so we had a process. We wanted to be responsive to the cities that the players would like to be associated with. And so I think each player, as I recall, listed about 3 top choices, and we tried to match those up equally so that no market was overloaded. And that was a process that we went through about around June, I believe, of last year. And so there was the allocation event. So we rounded up. So in addition to the 20 founding players, the founding players are the 1999 World Cup champions. We also enlisted 4 additional top players that brought it up to 24 players, so that each of the 8 teams could have 3 kind of senior American stars that could form the initial basis of the league. Layered on top of that was then international allocations. For instance, in Washington, we got 2 great Brazilian stars that were layered on top of those 3 founding players. And then after that, then we went through the draft process. We recruited just great players from around the world. Each team will have 3 or 4 international stars who are at the top level of their game in their country, whether it's Brazil or Norway or China. And then a terrific draft, which was so ably managed by Tony DeCicco, where we ended up with the 20 team members now on each of the 8 teams. So each team will have 20 players, and they're comprised of the initial American allocations, the international talent, and then the top rounds of drafting that led to the 20-person roster.
There's a second part that I don't think you're going to answer, but I think, Julie, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure.
You have equal time, Christine.
I'm not known for trash talking, as USA Today pointed out quite nicely this morning. But I think, as a lot of people in this room would argue, and there's a lot of players in here, all the founding players are here today. Let's give them a round of applause. And I think one of the things that's so wonderful about this league is that not only do we have the top players from the United States, we also have the best in the world. With us today is one of the great stars of the German national team, Bettina Wegmann. Bettina, raise your hand. Yeah. We also have Hegarisa from Norway, who was the MVP of the 1995 World Cup. Also won that World Cup. They also won the Olympics in 2000. Kelly Smith is next to her, star from the English national team. She's playing for Philadelphia. Anka Erenes from Norway. Raise your hand. Another Norwegian national teamer, star. Ulrika Karlsson, Go San Diego Spirit, from Sweden, our keeper. Another national teamer from Sweden. Did I get all the internationals that are here? Is Sun Win here? She's coming. So I think that's one of the wonderful attributes is there's such tremendous parity. We played an exhibition tournament in San Diego a couple weeks ago, and every team, you make a mistake and you're punished, which is the way it should be. And so it'll be wonderful to see that you have 21 games each team, and you have to fight out every single game to try and vie for the national title. So I'm not sure who won that tournament, John. I've avoided looking at the rankings, actually. You see, our investors are the worst trash talkers around. Christine, would you like to add your input? I'm staying neutral. We're in D.C. We're politicians.
So it's going to be a tie this year, is that correct? Talk both Julie and Christine, if you would. The women on the World Championship team had been, and the Olympic teams have been together a long time, playing as teammates. And now all of a sudden you're going to be going against each other in something more serious than practices. How's that going to feel when you go out in that field against your former teammates? I'd like both of you to answer that.
Well, that's I think the question we get most frequently asked. And the thing is, we compete every day in practice with the national team. And I think sometimes if you come to practice, it's a little bit rougher than some of the games we play. But we go after it. And the thing that is so great about all these players is everyone wants to be the best. And that's basically our goal, is to be the best. And when we step on the field, it's all about playing. And I think when you see the games and you see us go after it, you'll see that we're not teammates anymore. But when we step off the field, we'll go back to being friends. We'll talk about it. We'll pick on each other. We'll bust on each other for their missed chance to score and all that. But basically, we want to be the best, and we want to make our teams the best. And when we get back to the national team, then we can pick on the international players again.
Here's a question. Maybe, Julie, you'd like to take this one. It says, this comes from a person here. It says, I have a couple of young players with me today. Please explain the amount of dedication, effort, and sacrifice it takes to play soccer at the highest levels. And then they add a little postscript that says, thanks for everything you've done for kids in soccer.
One of the things that continually amazes me with the players I'm surrounded with is the work ethic. I think that is our foundation with the national team. And it's not, I heard the word sacrifice in there. It's not a sacrifice. People love to get out there, and I think that's why we've been so successful. It's not a coincidence. And there's this unwillingness to be complacent that is a part of the culture of our team. And it's so healthy. It's not this sick competitiveness. It's this healthiness of I can get better. I can make you better. I can get better by working on my own. When I'm away from the national team, I'm going to make sure that when we come back together, I've done my part. And it's wonderful. It's really amazing. And every year when I come back to it, and I come back to the strength of our national team and the strength of these players, I come back to that, this character and this will to always get better. And it all comes from loving the game. And when parents and kids come up to me and say, well, my daughter or my son isn't working hard enough, or they're just not doing enough, and the first thing we ask as players is, do they love it? Because if they don't love it, go find something you love, because that's what keeps bringing us back. And that's why us old ladies in the group who've been playing for a long time, they keep saying, when are you guys going to retire? And I say, when we stop loving it, because every day we come out to training, it's not just that we want to get better and work hard. We want to be out there for each other. And so I always find with children that if they can find what their passion is and follow that, then you're going to have the most success because you're going to want to work harder. But that's really a part of our culture on the national team that is so special.
This old lady happens to be 30, is that correct? Oh, 29, 28. Talk about, if you will, both Julie and Christine, this question I would like to know who your superheroes were when you were growing up. Who were your role models?
Well, basically, I grew up following the New York Yankees. Willie Randolph was my favorite player, and still a Yankee fan, even though I'm living in Boston now, which is a little scary. And they're playing this weekend. But also my older brother. My brother Scott's 4 years older than I am, and basically I was his little shadow, and he led me along in everything he did, from baseball to football in the yard to soccer. And, you know, he always used to beat me in a lot of the sports, but soccer, of course. So he was really the one that kept me going and basically never gave me any little chances, you know, everything I had to work for, and that's where I think why I've been so successful.
Do you have role models you'd like to talk about?
Sure. How did you know? I was going to say Christine Lilly. She just didn't know it. There is a Christine Lilly Day in Wilton, Connecticut, you know. It's my favorite day of the year. My role models were all men. I grew up, I was a big 1980s Laker fan, you know, the years of Worthy, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and, you know, 8-foot-tall men that I could never emulate, and then these big 300-pound football players. So I think that was one of the things I look back on and really am so proud of our team and these players, because that's something now that young kids, like I talked about before, can look at, and finally there's someone realistic that they can emulate. So mine were mostly men, and I think that's going to be one of the wonderful repercussions of this league is all these new role models we're going to create. Not just the 20 from the national team and the founding players and the international stars. Now you have a pool of 8 teams with 20 players, 160 new role models for these young kids.
I have another question for you two soccer players. And this one asks, what type of statement does tomorrow's game, the opening of the new soccer league, make about women's athletics in general? Just not soccer, but total athletics. Christine?
Well, I think tomorrow, basically, we're making history again in female sports. I think if you look through the years, and ever since 1996 Olympics, I think women's sports has really risen in the United States. And with the WNBA out there, they have professional softball out there now, and, you know, the women's soccer league now. And it's just making a statement that, you know, we've been waiting for so long to play professionally, you know, to live our dreams, and now it's here. And it is more than the soccer game itself, but when you see those players play tomorrow, they're living a dream, and the players that have gotten drafted onto the teams are basically ecstatic. And these are the kind of moments as an athlete you live for. And I think when I look back on our career with the national team, I think tomorrow is going to be one of those memories that, yeah, the World Cup was great, but now look, this is something new. This has been our dreams, and this is professional soccer, and this is for all those young kids to say, you know what, one day maybe I'll be out there.
Christine, before you go away, I have a questioner who has a question specifically for you. And they, no, might be. But it asked, how did that winning header that you had in 1999 for the World Cup Championship perhaps change your life, or what impact has it had on you?
That's a tricky question. Well, you know, basically I was doing my job, and in the game of soccer, anything can happen. In those split moments, you know, you're either in the right position or in the wrong position. I happened to be in the right position, and it happened so fast. I really can't have any vision of what was going on. All I saw was the ball, and if I didn't hit it, you know, that would have been the worst thing ever for me, but also the team. But but it was basically one of those things that, you know, it happened, it was over with, and we were very tired in the game, and it was like, all right, now let's get out of here. You know, let's move up the fields, go to the other end and play. But it was a moment, and I was just glad to be there.
Mr. Hendricks, A question, you now have 8 teams in the league. Are there any plans for expansion? Are you thinking about that any time in the near future?
Yeah, I think it's likely over the 5-year period of development of the league that we would consider launching in several markets. I think some of the investors have won't reveal the cities, but some of the investors have already indicated markets that if we go to, they would certainly be supporters of. But I think what we really want to do is make the league launch successfully with 8 teams at the end of the season. We'll make a decision on when we go to 10 teams. That could be in 2002, or it could be as long as 2004. But we just know there's a lot of markets out there that would welcome this sport. One of the challenges is finding the proper venues for the sport of soccer. We have lots of NFL stadiums scattered across the country, and we just need a little more data on the attendance before we make a lot of the decisions on the cities that we will expand into.
Does Detroit happen to be one of those cities that's on your list?
Yes.
Good, good, good. We can make news. Tell me, if you will, please, the difference between this league and the other professional leagues that are out there, and why this league might go when some of the other leagues, or teams as DC United, perhaps hasn't fared so well.
Well, when you think of the other leagues out there, there's the mature established leagues, like the NFL and the NBA, National Hockey League, which are firmly established with the American public, and they're going to be around for a long time. Then there's the effort to establish new sports leagues, and again, I think soccer is a terrific sport. I'm a DC United fan, so I'm very optimistic about the future of MLS as well as WUSA. So I think it'll just take longer, more television exposure, not only for the women's league, which we've got lined up. MLS, I think, has had a terrific foundation period during their first 5 years. They're launching what we think will be a successful 6th season, and they've been helpful to us, and we've learned a lot from the MLS experience. Again, coming back to WSA, we have some advantages that other startup leagues did not have. Not all leagues have the household names to start a sports league, and the players in this room have come to define the sport and their household names for many American families. We're launching with great television exposure, and we're launching with great financial backing, and so a lot of sports leagues lack these initial kind of foundational ingredients for success. Many sports leagues can't claim that they represent, especially as a startup, the very best of their sport in the world. And as Julie was explaining, this is the best women's soccer league in the world. There's not another one out there better. We have all the great talent. And I think that is another advantage that will lend toward the success of this league.
I wonder if Julie and Christine can tell us a little bit what they see as the difference between the men's soccer and female soccer, and might we someday see a competition between the two?
I know. I knew that was going to happen. I think, obviously it's very similar, yet it's very different. I think we physically, they're a lot stronger and faster. We match up against some younger boys teams and do well against them, and technically we do well, but when you get to these big guys that become 18, 19 years old, you just can't stay with them physically. But the thing that we talk about is we find that, although they're different styles, it's the same game, and I think they're equally as entertaining. And our fans, I know, would agree and love to come out and watch. But I think in terms of the leagues, we've always taken the approach that the two together can build soccer and make it stronger. And instead of competing against each other, we really welcome the opportunity to cooperate with the MLS and build soccer in this country. And it's a great opportunity to do that. I mean, it's so wonderful to hear when you see reports of MLS season ticket sales up 20%. We all support MLS teams on our team, and and feel that here's a great opportunity once again in this country to keep promoting soccer and to keep building the fan base and keep the interest with the young kids. And so what a wonderful opportunity to do it together.
Very good. We're nearing the end, but before I ask the last question, I have a couple of chores to do. One, Mr. Hendricks, is this is a certificate of appreciation for your speech here at the National Press Club. We very much appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much, Dick.
And for all three of you, we have the Press Club mug that we will give to Mr. Hendricks.
Great. Thank you.
And the last question, I wonder if each of you, the three of you, might just briefly respond to this. This is sort of the second league that started up this year. The other one was the XFL. Would you just briefly compare the prospects of success with your league and the XFL?
We really appreciate that question, don't we? No, I think, again, we're trying to learn. When you look at the XFL, I think they had great resources that were going for them. They've had the creative resources of World Wrestling Federation as well as the television resources of NBC. I think we've taken a different tack in terms of our promotion. We're in this for the long term, and we've set very realistic expectations, conservative expectations. We expect to surpass them, but we want to be pleasantly surprised. And so in terms of our ratings goals and attendance goals, sponsorship goals, we know we have the financial backing. We'll be here to report back to you 3 and 4 years ago on the 3 or 4 years from now on our progress. And so our approach is different than lots of flash, initial hype that could lead to some disappointment. And our approach is quite different from that. And that's about the only comparison I'll make.
Did either of you want to make a quick reference to that? Well, thank you very much for coming. I'd like to thank you all for being here today, and I'd also like to thank the National Press Club staff members Melinda Cook, Pat Nelson, Joanne Booz, Melanie Abdel-Dermot, and Howard Rothman for organizing today's luncheon. And thanks to the NPC Library for the research. And thank you very much. We are adjourned. With 500 million viewers. Mr. Hendricks' communications holdings now include the Learning Channel, Animal Planet, Travel Channel, Discovery Health Channel, Discovery Kids, several digital channels, Discovery.com, and 165 Discovery retail stores. So now he and the women's soccer players are counting on his Midas touch to extend to the new soccer league. As Ms. Foudy has said, quote, "You only get to launch a league but once. We want to do it right." So please join me in welcoming John Hendricks, Julie Foudy, and Christine Lilly to the National Press Club. Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you very much, Dick. Well, it's a pleasure to join you here today. With that introduction, I guess you'll see I might be wearing a number of hats. I'm a soccer dad. I represent the cable industry. I represent the investors who believe in the founding players who have made this league happen. But if Michael Eisner is channel surfing, I just want to assure him that I'm not representing Disney today. You know, that's a future acquisition. It's a great thrill to be here. And what I thought I would do is tell a little bit about the history of how the cable industry got involved with these remarkable players. I think the real stories of how this league came about will be told through your questions, though, of Julie Foudy and Christine Lilly.
Feature Ms. Chastain. It's our intent to have the best product on the first day, and that everybody walks away and goes, "God, that was incredible," Brandi Chastain has said. Ms. Foudy, the captain of the U.S. women's national team and president of the Women's Sports Foundation, is a midfielder for the San Diego Spirit. Ms. Lilly is a forward midfielder with the Boston Breakers. The other 4 teams are the Atlanta Beat, Philadelphia Charge, Carolina Courage, and New York Power. When the women players decided they really wanted their own league, and not become an adjunct to the men's professional soccer league, they called on John Hendricks to help them put it together. Mr. Hendricks, who turned his 1982 founding of the Discovery Channel on borrowed money into a billion-dollar empire, has already proven to be a true visionary. In about 3 weeks, Mr. Hendricks lined up some $40 million in backing from his cable buddies, and the dream of a women's soccer league became a reality. He is chairman of the board of the Women's United Soccer Association, but the players refer to him as St. John. Born in West Virginia, Mr. Hendricks grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. He graduated with a degree in history in 1973 from the University of Alabama. He and his wife, Maureen, have 2 children. He founded the Discovery Channel because he felt there ought to be a place on television for showing documentaries. Discovery went on the air in 1985 with 156,000 subscribers. Today, Discovery Communications operates in 150 countries with 180 million total households. DiCicco, Chief Operating Officer of the Women's United Soccer Association and coach of the World Cup championship team. Bobby Goldwater, President and Executive Director of DC Sports and Entertainment Commission. Lee Burke, Chief of Marketing and Television, Women's United Soccer Association. April Taylor, reporter with the Detroit News. Julie Foudy, player with the San Diego Spirit and president of the Women's Sports Foundation. Frank Ockerfer, co-chairman of the Speakers Committee, a former National Press Club president. And skipping over our speaker for a moment, Arthur Bernstein, vice president of the United Sports Fans of America and the Speakers Committee member who arranged today's luncheon. Thank you, Arthur. Christine Lilly, a player for the Boston Breakers. Barbara Allen, Chief Executive Officer of the Women's United Soccer Association. Jennifer Sargent, Scripps Howard News Service. Sheila Tate, principal with the Powell Tate Public Relations Firm. Now, if you have questions, and I trust you will, please write them on the cards that are in front of you and address them not only to our speaker, but also to Julie and Christine, who will be here to answer questions as well. Today, instead of the single newsmaker we normally have at our National Press Club, we have 3. You just met 2 of them, Julie Foudy and Christine Lilly. The third, John Hendricks, founder, chairman, and CEO of Discovery Communications Incorporated. Little. That's true. Not bad. is the principal organizer of the new Women's Professional Soccer League, which debuts tomorrow with a game here in Washington. Who can forget that day in the Rose Bowl in 1999 when the U.S. women's soccer team defeated China for the World Cup? Julie and Christine were both members of that team. And Christine made the defensive play of the game when she blocked with her head at the goal line what appeared for a moment would be the winning goal for the Chinese team in sudden death. Even those who were non-soccer fans at the time, including myself, could not help but be captivated by the thrill of the moment and the intensity of the game. The women on both teams played to near exhaustion. When the U.S. finally won the penalty kick in the game, the thousands in the stadium and the millions watching on television cheered the American team, although perhaps not as exuberantly or as demonstratively as Brandi Chastain. Now the members of that winning team truly have a league of their own. All 20 players will be part of the Women's United Soccer Association, the new professional women's soccer league. The World Cup players have been split among the 8 teams that begin the season tomorrow. The first game at the newly refurbished RFK Stadium in Washington will feature the Washington Freedom and the Bay Area Cyber Rays, and will pit 2 former teammates against one another. Mia Hamm will lead the Washington team, while the Cyber Rays. Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Press Club. My name is Richard Ryan, and I am Senior Washington Correspondent for the Detroit News and President of the National Press Club. And I'd like to welcome club members and their guests in the audience today, as well as those people who are watching on C-SPAN or listening to this program on National Public Radio. The video archive of today's luncheon is provided by Connect Live and is available through the National Press Club website at press.org. National Press Club luncheons are also carried live by many sites on the World Wide Web. Press Club members may also access transcripts of our luncheons at our website. Non-members may purchase transcripts, audio and videotapes by calling 1-888-343-1940. Before introducing our head table, I would like to remind our members of future speakers. On Tuesday, April 17th, Secretary Tommy Thompson of the Department of Health and Human Services will be here to talk about his new initiative for organ donations. On Monday, April the 23rd, David M. Walker, Comptroller General of the United States, will be our guest. And on Wednesday, April 25, Dale Petrosky, who is President of the Baseball Hall of Fame, will be at the Press Club. I'd now like to introduce our head table guests and ask them to stand briefly when their names are called. And please hold your applause until all head table guests are introduced. From your right and my left, we have Michael Marlowe, producer of the White House Chronicle.